Well, hello everyone. It's very nice to see you here, thank you. My name is Anna Isabel and I'm an analytical hypnotherapist. So what that means is that my job is to help you track your feelings so that we discover where they are coming from, if they are causing you problems in your life. And then once we can track them back to that initial sensitizing event, then we can begin to work to reshape your perspective, and once that's done, everything is clear. It's a very simple, elegant, and complex process all at the same time. But at the heart of that, what makes it different from the normal counseling sessions that people would describe as talk therapy is the use of hypnosis. So hypnosis is a state in which you are very relaxed, you are fully aware of what's going on, but you are so relaxed that you engage your memory and your imagination more fully, and it enables us to work together. So how does that connect with the title of this talk, the mind-body connection? So the reason that I'm interested in this connection is precisely because of my job as a hypnotherapist. Because, believe it or not, everything that you do and everything that you feel is actually guided by your emotions. You know, your subconscious is a backseat driver. You think you're in charge, and you are, until you realize that you're doing things you would rather not be doing, and you can't stop yourself from doing that. At that point, you might turn around and still you can't see the driver back there because they are invisible to you. That is your subconscious. And the connection with your body is very clear with your emotions. So if you just close your eyes for a moment and take yourselves to a moment in time in which you felt very happy, you will experience an emotional response. And that emotional response will make you want to smile, or if it's strong enough, to laugh, or it will relax your body. But if I ask you now to go to a moment in time where you were very anxious, a job interview, waiting for the results of a test, waiting for the results from a doctor, and immediately you will notice that your body changes. Your muscles become tense, particularly very often around your stomach, your neck, your shoulders. It is an absolute response to the emotion that you're feeling at this moment in time. So feel free to open your eyes again. But that little demonstration is showing you something. It's showing you that whatever you feel, your body immediately translates into a physical response. So this is where hypnosis, EFT, and any therapy that deals with emotion is going to help you with your physical body. And that can help with all sorts of physical conditions, because many physical conditions begin exactly with how you feel at an emotional level. So why would emotions affect the body? What is going on here? So let me introduce you to the autonomic nervous system. And there are two parts. There's the sympathetic nervous system, and there's the parasympathetic nervous system. You would think the sympathetic nervous system would be the good guy, the one that makes you feel good. Not so much, because this is linked with the fight-flight response. So it has a very important job, and that job is to keep you safe. It's that simple. You don't think about it. It's your reflexes, your instant response. That is coming from your sympathetic nervous system. It prepares the body for stress. It releases cortisol. It releases adrenaline. It increases your heart rate. It increases your blood pressure. It decreases your digestion. And if you are scared enough, you will be wanting to evacuate bowel and bladder as well. Reason being, you're getting ready to fight, or to flee, or to freeze. That's its purpose. Very important. However, the problem is when it's all out of balance. So the parasympathetic nervous system is it kind of is in charge of everything that you're not so aware of. It's all of those body responses that you don't think about. In fact, the whole of your nervous system does that. But the parasympathetic nervous system helps you to rest. It's what happens when you are in rest. You're digesting. Your body is in a calm state. And so you can produce growth hormones. You can just function more normally. Your heart rate decreases, your blood pressure decreases, your body repairs. There's a chair right here if you'd like to sit down. Okay. So, what you want, ideally, is to be more in your parasympathetic side than on your sympathetic side. This is for emergencies. This is where we ought to be most of the time, because most of us are fortunate enough to not be living in a state of emergency, so we think. So, right there, when you look at that, you can see how the emotions are going to affect your body. But let me introduce you to the vagus nerve. And the vagus nerve, look at the names of the organs that it is connected to. It is your heart, your liver, your GI tract, your spleen, your stomach, your lungs. And there's more going on here, because right up there is the stem of the brain. And so you can see that this vagus nerve links your body in a physical sense to what's going on in your head. So what that means is that what's going on up here affects everything. And so what is going on here? Well, number one, your imagination. Everything that you are not experiencing in this moment is in your head. Everything that you think is going to be the outcome is your imagination. Whatever you're thinking about, whatever outcome you are projecting into the future for any event is pure imagination. And whatever's already been, we call memory, but that's also in our heads, and our imagination plays a part in that. This is why we do have, at times, unreliable witnesses. And we have to determine, is somebody a reliable witness or is somebody an unreliable witness? What is the difference? The difference is, an unreliable witness is not necessarily lying. but their view of what we might call an objective event, in as much as we can call anything objective, that view is so colored by their emotions that they're not remembering clearly everything that happened, or they are only focused on one thing, how they felt in that moment. And how they felt in that moment is totally filtered through past memories, past experiences, past conditioning. And just to give you a little story to illustrate that, when I was training to be a hypnotherapist, we were shown a video that was of a very well-known, in fact, his name is Gil Boyne, a very well-known hypnotherapist who pioneered a technique called transformation therapy. And he was giving a talk, large American, you know, the archetype of the bombastic type of American. And at the end, the crew who were filming everything went round and talked to the people about what they thought about what they had heard. And there was one woman who had been sitting, I think unfortunately for her, in the front row, who said he was awful. How could we have anybody like that standing up in front of an audience calling themselves hypnotherapy? What language? And the shouting. There was no shouting. He did not swear. The rest of the audience, nobody heard that. And when they played back the video for her to see, she was very confused. But what happened there was that his stature and his manner reminded her of her father. And she was so much in that memory, that filter was so strong, that she thought he had done all the things he said. So that's an extreme example of an unreliable witness. And this happens, and we can all be unreliable witnesses in any given moment because our emotions are driving everything. So that is the power of your imagination. And whatever you're thinking generates imaginary thoughts. And we project that onto other people. We project that onto situations, and most definitely into the future. Most of the fear that we experience is us using our imaginations negatively. And that can cause you to hyperventilate and have panic attacks. So emotion then impacts the body. And it all happens all the time. You're doing it all the time when you're conscious and when you're unconscious. When you're conscious, you think you know what you're doing, but your subconscious, as I've already explained, drives the car, always. So, what happens when emotion impacts the body? So in your brain, there is a tiny little thing called the amygdala. There's the size of your brain there, and there is the amygdala. So there it is, right there. It doesn't look very big, but that is what causes you to respond. And you know, notice he's looking a bit worried down here. The eyes popping out there as he sees something that's very, very scary. So this amygdala sometimes is referred to as being in the reptilian brain. And it is pure instinct. It is what drives your fight, flight, freeze response. That's what it does. And I would add hide as well. Freeze is meant to be a version of hiding. So when that amygdala is activated for whatever reason, what we have then is that response. And as I've already described, it puts us into the sympathetic nervous system, And it is meant to deal with the moment. It's not meant to go on forever. If it's going on for an indefinite period, now it becomes detrimental to our physical well-being. And so this is the territory of chronic stress. It means that our body is being continually flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. Not good. It depresses a lot of systems in your body, including your immune system. And I'm sure many of you have had instances where you come down with colds because you're exhausted, because you've been stressed. So sometimes that exhaustion is physical stress, not getting enough sleep, because you're working long hours, you're not getting enough time to decompress. Other times it's you can't sleep because you're really stressed emotionally, you're anxious, and you're suffering from insomnia. So that stress can come in different packages. And in fact, one of the first instances where it was admitted by scientists that chronic stress was a thing that impacted on the body was when they started to be able to measure cortisol levels. And they were studying carers, people who are on call 24 hours a day, no break, looking after a loved one who is suffering. So this is one example of long-term chronic stress. Depression is a very interesting one, because people who are diagnosed with clinical depression, there's actual studies that show that the number of neural pathways that are being active in the brain shrinks. So it's like your brain is shrinking. That is the effect that depression has on you. It might not be shrinking literally, but the number of neural pathways that are actually working shrinks. Which I think means then that your ability to think beyond what you're seeing, you're becoming too focused, too narrow. You can't think beyond what you're feeling. And that then makes you shrink further and further. Interestingly, I've only recently discovered some studies that have shown that the amygdala, once you are suffering from chronic stress or chronic anxiety, these long-term periods of stress, whatever you want to call them, the amygdala enlarges and, interestingly, does not shrink back. So this, I think, takes us into trauma. And remember that trauma doesn't have to be big trauma. It doesn't have to be being in a war zone or experiencing abuse of some kind. It can be a drip, 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 and you're wanting me to stop, because that's how it is, that drip, drip, all the time of little things that somebody does that undermine and cause you to believe in yourself. Trauma, no matter what kind, how big, or how seemingly insignificant the event might be, has one thing in common. It makes you unsafe, makes you feel unsafe, and it stops you from feeling your own power and believing in yourself. So it can be a very drip drip over the years effect, or it can be something big that makes you feel vulnerable and disempowered. So what does that mean then? Well, it explains why, if this amygdala does not go back to its normal size, it means that you become particularly sensitive to certain things. It might mean that you are constantly looking out for danger. You are hypervigilant, hypersensitive, overreacting. And it might be that you are perfectly capable of function in normal everyday life, but small things can make you go boom, or can make you just withdraw into yourself, and then it's hard to come out of it. So it's these, this word triggered is used very lightly here, there, and everywhere. But it is true that once we become sensitized to a certain something, then we find it much harder to not react, to go straight into that fight, flight, freeze mode. So what can we do? And I put up two pictures here, me and my dog, right? Okay. And here we are on the beach, looking at the sea, and here we are playing a game together. Joy. Joy, hope, positive feelings are the things that are going to bring you out of this state. So when you catch yourself going into a very negative tunnel and things are getting dark, this is the point at which you have to start using your imagination consciously, purposefully, in the other direction. Perhaps you are worried because you have a child who's out late, and you're one of these parents who finds it very difficult to deal with your child being out late. And your head is telling you, your reason is telling you, everything is fine. There's no reason to be worried. There's every reason to believe everything's fine. Just having a good time. Perhaps had one or too many drinks and has lost track of time. Whatever it is, then switch to imagining that moment of them entering the house. Imagine what you're going to do together the next day. Imagine what you're going to do in a month's time. But get that imagination from the horror show that is playing in your head and shift it to something else. It requires effort, and it might require help too, because it might require that you see somebody to understand why it is that you find something that's somewhat mundane so scary, if you can't do that on your own. But that's just an example. Let's give you another one. You're going for a job interview, and you can already imagine your mouth going dry, your body tensing up. No, stop imagining that. It doesn't matter if it's happened to every job interview you've ever been to. Imagine that this time it's going to be different. You are going to command the attention of the panel you're sitting in front of. You have everything sorted out. You are going to be fluid. Imagine that. This is a technique that's so often used by sports people when they're getting ready for an event. They are imagining the movement. They are rehearsing, hitting that puck in golf just right, just perfectly. They are imagining it all in detail. And what's happening is that they are rehearsing it, and their body will respond, the flow will be better. That is the power of your imagination. So, when you are heading into a dark tunnel, engage your imagination. And if you are going through a stressful period in your life, remember this: joy. It's so easy to forget to love. It's so easy to forget to do those things that bring us pleasure and bring us joy, because everything else seems so much more urgent. Hug your child. Play with your dog. Take a walk. Look at the blue sky. And if it's raining, go and sing in the rain. Splash in puddles. Be that child that you used to be, that used to know how to laugh, that used to know how to play. That is going to nurture you and give you the resilience that you need in order to move forward with your life. So I think at this point I need to check on time.
Well, I think you're doing okay at the moment.
Okay, good. All right. So I'm going to ask you to close your eyes for a moment. And just focus on your breathing, because besides your imagination, your breath is your shortcut to moving from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. And it is the reason why it's often the starting point for meditation. And it is the reason why I, as a hypnotherapist, and many of my colleagues will begin an induction by asking you to focus on your breath. So you take a deep breath, you hold it, and then you very slowly release it. You take a deep breath, you hold it, and then you very slowly release it. And each breath you take just takes you deeper and deeper into relaxation. Each breath you take takes you deeper and deeper into relaxation. And all external sound just goes straight into the background. It is irrelevant. It is unnecessary. You are merely focusing at this moment on your breathing. In, hold, slowly release. And each time you do that, you feel your shoulders drop more. You feel your muscles relax. Your body is looser. You are releasing anything that's unnecessary. And you could now imagine that if you were to try to open your eyes right at this moment, you would find it impossible to open your eyes. You are so relaxed that your eyes just want to stay closed. You try to open them. You try to open them. But they flatly refuse. And that's fine. Because really, right now, you just want to let yourself relax. And you can just imagine that you are on your favorite beach and the temperature is perfect. The temperature is just right. And you're looking at the sea and the waves are coming in and they're going out. They are coming in and they are going out. And it is so restful. All you're doing is watching them come in and roll out. This is a rhythm, a beautiful rhythm, a rhythm that is mirroring your breath, the rhythm of your breath. It is mirroring the rhythm of your breath. And so you breathe in and you breathe out in rhythm with the waves. And everything is so perfect. The sun is glorious. The sky is blue. The sea is turquoise. And the horizon is clear. So you stand here, your feet totally grounded in the moment, and you look out to this clear horizon, and you now know that that is a blank canvas for you. You can do whatever you like. In this moment of freedom, you look at that clear horizon, and that is your blank canvas. And you are choosing in this moment to paint the most beautiful painting you have ever imagined. Perhaps you've never held paintbrushes in your hand, and this is your first time. All that matters is that you are discovering that you can paint. And the painting that you are creating is the painting of your future. And your future rests in this moment of creativity. And in that painting, you are now seeing the people you have yet to meet, the friends who are waiting to meet you. They're waving. You can see in the painting that they are waving. They are smiling and beckoning to you. In your painting, you see future versions of yourself, healthy, whole, happy, feeling so, so good. This is the painting you are creating, and it feels amazing. This is the power of you. And in a moment, I'm bringing you back into awareness. On the count of 5, your eyes open, you're fully aware. 1, you're more aware of the room that you're in and the sounds around you. 2, from head to toe, you feel so good. It is as though you have been in the best spa ever. 3, you feel strong, empowered. You feel energized and inspired. 4, your eyes are crystal clear, as though you've been bathing them in fresh spring water. And 5, eyes open, fully aware. Some of you look very relaxed. 1 or 2 of you tried to open your eyes and found that actually it was more trouble than it was worth. So that was good. That was a little, what I wanted you to get from that exercise was the power of your imagination. Some of you will have almost been able to taste the salt of deceit. Others of you may have had to work a little bit harder. It takes a bit of practice, and we're not in the most ideal place to do this. But you had a sense of what's possible with your imagination, and that will help you, not just in dealing with your everyday life, but it will help your body too. So, any questions?
Yes, and it was the enigma, how you say it, enigma, the
Amygdala.
Why does that not go back? Is that just?
I'm not entirely sure. I just came across some studies that have been done, and it shows that actually once it's enlarged, it doesn't go back. So you can, where I was talking about with depression and other states that are challenging over a long period of time, your neural pathways, the number of active neural pathways shrinks, it's very possible to rebuild that again. So that bit, but the amygdala for some reason doesn't. And I think, although I don't know why, I can see why it's so difficult then for us to come back to being able to not be so reactive to things that remind us of past events.
Isn't it? Then it's already there, so there's...
Yeah, exactly. You can't undo it. So, I mean, I would like to see some studies done with people who have successfully gone through hypnosis of the type that I practice. Because, I don't know, but I have no way of proving this, but my gut says that it's very possible that it shrinks. And the reason is that the work of an analytical hypnotherapist is deeply powerful, because what we are doing is we are reshaping the perspective of the memory. Because remember, most sensitizing events happen when we're children, when we don't have the full picture. So when we go back to that sensitizing event, and we are able to bring in the perspective of the adult, and perhaps see things we could not see before, that's very powerful, and it changes the way the person feels. I mean, I was working with a client recently, a number of traumatic events, including accidentally setting himself on fire at the age of about 5. Okay? Now, his reaction to his, what we identified as his needs not being met, was, in terms of temper, not to 100 in 3 seconds flat. He really struggled. The moment he thought somebody was not listening to him, the moment he thought that somebody was not understanding him, his reaction was pretty visceral. And he had an advantage over many people in the sense that he was already on a path of healing and spiritual awakening, if I can put it like that, and meditation, and doing lots of really good things. And he had a pretty good idea of why his reaction was the way it was, but he still did not have the ability to deal with it, to stop himself. 2 sessions, and this week I had the joy of hearing him say, "I'm just not reacting at the moment. It's just not happening." So what happened was that in that first session, we went through the sensitizing events that his subconscious, not him talking to me, but his subconscious chose as being the most significant. And consequently, we worked through them. He could see what had led to the event, whereas a child he couldn't. It brought him that understanding that he was lacking. We used the imagination to bring healing to the child. The child felt safe, the child felt loved, we came out, and the result was, as of this week, he was feeling, bless you, much, much calmer. So, is it possible that it will start reacting like that again? Maybe. My experience says it's very unlikely, but he's checking in with me in a month's time. That is a particularly dramatic example from the point of view that the incidents were so obviously impactful, and also from the point of view that that was one regression that we did. That is unusual. Averagely, people need more than one session. But it was such a good example of the power of this, and that's why I'm wondering, could his amygdala have actually shrunk? I don't know. I'd love to know, but I don't.
Can you just explain for me the difference between hypnotherapy and analytical hypnotherapy?
So, okay, there's hypnosis, and hypnosis can be practiced, as you've seen, I'm sure, on stage with a hypnotist, and there, what he does, what most hypnotists will do, even before you have come and sit down, there will have been people watching and interacting with the audience and priming them, giving them little suggestions. They don't even know what's happening. Giving them little suggestions, and their imaginations are already kind of opening up to this possibility. They're getting excited. So by exciting the emotional state, we are already opening up our imaginations. So by the time they come and sit down, they're already up here and more willing to play, if we can put it like that. He will then, or she, but I think I've only ever seen men doing this, but I'm sure there are women around doing it too, will then engage with the audience and get them to do testers. So this will be instances where they're using their imagination already and perhaps getting the hands to levitate or getting the hands to come closer together. I played with the idea of doing that with you today, but I realized I wasn't going to have enough time. But it's brilliant, it works. But from the hypnotist's perspective, he is looking for those who are already halfway in a trance without even knowing it. And they are going to be the ones he wants up there on stage because they're going to be in the most suggestible state. So, this has been known for a very long time. Goes right back into the 19th century. That's how long we've known about this. Governments, and very recent and current governments, are using this all the time. Pump up the fear. Pump up the suggestions. Keep everybody guessing. Already the emotion state is high. You are going to be so much more malleable, so much more suggestible. When I was training on the medical side of the hypnotherapy course, we read about an incident in which a doctor had attended the scene of an accident, quite accidentally. The woman was bleeding profusely. She was in a very bad state. He just happened to be caught in the traffic jam and came over, saw her. But here's the thing: he was trained in hypnosis. All he said to her was, "Now, you're going to need all that blood. You can stop bleeding now." And she did. Why? Two things: an extremely heightened sense of emotion. She was terrified. He was an authority figure. He told her what she needed to do. She did it. That is mind-boggling, but there's so many accounts of similar things. So, hypnosis then is the state, and it can be used in different ways. An analytical hypnotherapist is going to use that state to take you back where you need to go to work with the memory. And some would call it reshape the memory, some would call it reframe the memory. I simply say we're shedding new light on it, giving you information that you didn't have before, that enables you to move beyond the feelings that kept you stuck there and that are driving the behavior that you're in despair about.
What if the memory is worse in your life?
Sorry?
What if the memory is actually worse than they thought? And you've gone back there?
Okay, so I just want to kind of shift that question a little bit. Yes, we do guard ourselves. Severely so in instances where people have experienced sexual abuse, for instance. They don't want to go there. We don't have to go to every moment, the worst moments. We don't. And quite frankly, I'd rather they didn't, for my own self-protection. I don't need those images in my head. Neither do they need to go there. So usually what happens is they will be in that moment but not recall the detail. They'll talk about how it feels. They'll talk about any efforts to stop what's happening from happening. And then if they're getting very distressed, some people would say that's cathartic and that in itself is healing. I'm more cautious, as you would be, I'm guessing. And what I do is I place a protection around them by helping them to step out of it and become a cooler observer. And then work with it that way. So yes, that's a very good question, because what it's illustrating is how delicately we have to read the situation and help them. No. And here's the beauty. In analytical hypnotherapy, and this is specifically the transformation therapy technique that I was talking about, there is a beginning, a middle, and an end. There's the beginning when we access the emotion and we use that to track back to the sensitizing event. We then explore the sensitizing events, but we do not leave it there ever, 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 because that's re-traumatizing. We have to, this is why my sessions are 2 hours long, because we need to explore, and then we need to go into the healing modality, which might be a dialogue with whoever. But crucially, there's also a dialogue with the self of the age that we are encountering. There is the new information, the new perspective, the new way of framing everything. That, and I always know we are done when that self can smile. And I check, has the 5-year-old you smiled yet? No, very reluctant at the moment. What do they need? What is it that they need at this moment? Don't know, not sure. Okay, feel it out. Do you need to hug the child? Is there anything that the child wants to say? Does the child want to run off and play? What is it the child needs? And then the imagination kicks in, the connection with that emotion, that part of the self strengthens, and we do get there. We do get to the smile. Sometimes it's broad, sometimes it's a hint, but that hint is such a long way from where we were that it is exactly where we need to be. So at that point then, there is a further step of integrating everything into the present. How does that reflect on the issue you brought in now? What does this mean for the future? And that's not the end, because the final step is the icing with the cherry on the cake, and that is the use of the imagination and the visualization in exercises similar to the one I've done with you, but specifically targeting what I know means something good to you, and creating a story around that is reinforcing everything beautiful and good that has come from that session. And then you take that away.
The analytical hypnotherapy is uniquely personalised.
It totally.
As opposed to kind of, because you can have hypnotherapy, say, I had that dysfunction of the IQ bit.
Yes.
In pregnancy, and it was knotting that back together.
Yes.
But we weren't going into trauma.
No.
So there is that tool.
Yes.
So kind of generic.
Exactly. You can do generic, and depending on what you are doing with that generic, it can be very effective. So, if you want to stop smoking, you can go for the generic. And at first, it appears that the percentage of success rate is extremely high, until you hit a snag, and now you're smoking again. Why did it go back? So in reality, that kind of generic hypnosis is highly ineffective for most things. Why? Because it's treating you as a computer that can be reprogrammed. You're not a computer that can be reprogrammed. You're a human being, and your emotions drive everything. Unless you deal with the reasons why you smoke, you will go back to smoking, sometimes sooner rather than later. It's asking the question, and this goes for all addictive behavior, and it's not just substance abuse, but all addictive behavior, any behavior that is obsessive, that feels compulsive and out of control, is symptomatic of something else. It's a symptom. So you have to get underneath, work out what it's about, and then you will be free. You will be free.
Well, I think our time's up.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all.